Good evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It is 7 o'clock on Monday, August 28th, 2023. We are now called to order. Would all please rise for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up tonight is approval of the agenda. Everybody has a copy of the agenda with them. Is there any discussion on the agenda, any revisions or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approval of the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved as distributed. Next up, approval of the minutes. We have one correction on the bottom of page 6, which is to change council member Prafke to city administrator Prafke. With that correction, are there any additional corrections or revisions to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. We now have time on our schedule for visitor comments. Is there a member of the audience who'd like to address the council on any agenda item? Hearing none. Now we have time for general visitor comments. Is there somebody who'd like to make a comment on any matter whatsoever? Hearing none, we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins with the resolution on page 10 and the memo on page 10 and concludes with the resolution on page 27 of the packet. The consent agenda includes the following renewal license applications approved subject to payment of the licensing fee in compliance with city code regulations. That is 2 temporary on-sale liquor, one to the St. Peter Lions, one to the St. Peter Ambassadors for the locations and dates printed, a temporary dance to the St. Peter Ambassadors, again, location and dates printed, a temporary show to Rock Bend Folk Festival, temporary gambling to the St. Peter Lions. And the following employee appointments are approved subject to successful completion of pre-employment and employment and drug testing and background investigation. That's to Austin Buss, a police officer with a wage of $42.11 per hour. Scott Simondet is hereby terminated from the City of St. Peter employment effective August 28th, 2023 due to inability to return to work after injury, as well as the schedule of disbursements for August 10th, 2023 through August 23rd, 2023. Is there any discussion on any of the consent agenda items or questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Rufat,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Ring.
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved. We have no items of unfinished business tonight. Our first item of new business is the adoption of a resolution sale of 2023 C general obligation bonds. And Shannon Sweety's here to talk to us about that.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. About a month ago, you initiated the process for a competitive sale of bonds to fund a number of projects. And ultimately, today was the day that we received bids. I passed out a bid tabulation sheet that shows you the 6 bids received, which is a very good showing. I think the most we've seen is 7, so a lot of bidders. I think the range in the bids, while it doesn't seem to be a lot in my business, it is kind of a range. It's almost a 1/4 percentage point between the low and the high bid. Tells us that a competitive bid works, and ultimately we get one person that breaks away from the herd and bids a little more aggressively than everybody else, and that happened to be Robert W. Baird and Company this time. They've purchased bonds from the city in the past. They maintain a presence in Minnesota, and they're headquartered in Wisconsin. So ultimately, my recommendation is to award the sale of bonds to Robert W. Baird. Par amount was $2,865,000. They actually paid us more than we were asking for. It's called premium. And so ultimately we came out with $59,000 in additional funds that will go into the construction account, and ultimately, if they're not spent as a contingency on our construction costs, will go into the debt service account and be used to offset levies and transfers from utility funds. And so ultimately, that creates a net interest rate, even though you see 4% coupons or interest rates all for every maturity. Ultimately, it creates a net effective interest rate with the premium payment of 3.9257%. Just about pretty well, I would say everybody had a premium bid, because that's what the market is doing today. They're actually wanting to have higher coupons, sensing inflation is coming in for the resale or retrade of these bonds. They want to have some ability to do that by having them carry a higher interest rate, and they're willing to pay some extra funds in order to do that. And so, more than happy to answer questions. During this process, your staff participated in a management call with Standard & Poor's, who affirmed the AA- credit rating of the city with a stable outlook. I believe that report was distributed to the council today, so you had a chance to look at it. Happy to try to answer questions regarding that process as well, if there are any. So, thank you.
Any questions for Shannon? Brad?
Just curious, how does the 4% interest rate look at compared to current trends? Are the rates still going up at this point, or are they anticipating increases?
I would say they've been relatively stable with some creep upward.
Thank you.
Haven't seen much downward movement since June, probably.
Any additional questions or discussion?
I'd add it was within 0.02% to what I guessed. So I don't get that close very often. Got to spike the ball when you can.
And I will note that council members received an updated copy of the resolution, and so we all have a hard copy that is different than the packet that we received on Friday. So that's the resolution that we're going to consider today. Is there any further discussion or questions? Brad?
So actually, I'm probably one of the few people who actually read the city's bond ratings.
Sure.
But it mentioned about the fact that we're lower income, but it said most of that is basically attributed to Gustavus and the Regional Treatment Center. Is that basically the main driver of the lower
Yes,
income?
and they say that those employers have a stabilizing effect on the local economy, but I don't think we're getting full credit for, well, I think they're punishing us more by the low incomes that those two institutions provide, or how they impact the community, and I don't think the stabilizing, effects of their employment offsets that to the full extent. So I think it hurts us a little bit, but not a lot.
That's what I got from it. So.
Yep.
Well, hearing nothing further, the resolution before us, providing for the issuance and sale of $2,865,000 general obligation improvement and utility revenue bonds, Series 2023C, pledging for the security thereof, special assessments and net revenues, and levying a tax for the payment thereof, has been distributed to the council. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstreng?
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp?
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.
Moving along, our next item of new business is the adoption of a resolution approving a request for city assistance for Rock Bend Folk Festival.
Mayor, members, the information starts in your packet on page 49, and it includes really a very similar process and request to what you've seen in previous years. I would make note that a letter is included within your packet from the Rock Bend Committee and the new chairperson, Steve Guzzi. And so there have been some modifications made, really just to update it from my perspective, not a practice change. And the resolution outlines what we are able or willing to provide and what they're providing as a part of this. And so within that resolution, you'll see that they'll be using Minnesota Square Park on September 6th through the 11th for the festival and setup and equipment and all of those things. We will provide electricity for the event, as is our custom. Some additional picnic tables. We set up the stage that you have that's available for them. And restroom facilities, of course, you'll see a little bit further down in the resolution that they provide additional restroom facilities, have access to the supplies to support those restroom facilities. And of course, they're required to have the $1.5 million of insurance that we request from all festival folks and organizers within the city of St. Peter. I'd be happy to go into more detail, but you've really seen this before. It's a wonderful event. If I recall properly, they are in their 32nd year of hosting this event in Minnesota Square Park. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. The resolution's included in your packet.
Any questions for Todd? Hearing nothing, the resolution authorizing city assistance for Rock Bend Folk Festival begins on page 55 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Rutherford.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of a resolution approving a request for city assistance for the St. Peter Ambassadors Oktoberfest.
Mayor members, this information starts on page 57, and this is similar to last year, but a little bit different from previous years for Oktoberfest, and that's really driven by the ambassadors who are the hosts or the organizers for this event, now having this event out at the Nicollet County Fairgrounds and using Johnson Hall and other things that are on the fairgrounds. So they're really asking us to be able to provide them with some additional picnic tables, portable light standards, and you have a fee schedule for that, so we're happy to provide those. And then the closure of Fair Street from West Scarrow to the fairgrounds on September 30th from about 1 to 1:30. Over the last few years, they've had a kiddie parade, and so the rec department assists with organizing that as well. They provide a certificate of insurance, and frankly, they wouldn't need to go through this if they didn't want to close down the street or need some of your stuff. And so that's what makes it come here rather than the use of Minnesota Square Park. Again, this event is being held at the fairgrounds here in St. Peter. Nothing more unusual to report, but the resolution is included in your packet, really on the last page of your packet.
Thanks, Todd. Questions for Todd about this request? Yeah.
The only question I have is just want to make sure that shutting down that road isn't going to cause too much of an issue with the construction traffic, the detours and everything.
So we've looked at that. We really don't believe that that will have a significant impact. And even though it says from 1 to 1:30, my guess is the timeline for the kiddie parade is even less than that. And there'll be ample assistance and adults to provide supervision for that, as well as rec staff. And so we feel okay about it.
Good question. Any follow-up? Hearing nothing, the resolution approving city assistance for St. Peter Ambassadors Oktoberfest event is on page 61 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Rutherford.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Next up are reports. I don't have a report tonight. Are there reports from any council members? Hearing nothing from council members, we'll move on to a report from the city administrator.
So I have 4 or 5 on the list here, Madam Mayor, that I'd like to report on. First of all, summer recreation programming is winding to an end here as summer turns to fall, unfortunately. But a lot of programs went on, and we'll be providing a report to you within the next month or so on all the activities that went on in utilization. But wanted to make sure that people are aware that the new brochure is out. Not only was it sent to every address within our community, and that brochure is shared by the rec department and community ed, but it's also available online, and so you can check out the city's website and find something that is fantastic for you and your family to do over the fall and winter months. We have 2 brochures a year. It's kind of fall and winter and spring and summer are glommed together. So we want to encourage people to utilize that, and thanks for all the participation that we had this year from everyone within the community. Also wanted to mention the Recreation Director recruitment process, which all of you have participated in some way, shape, or form. I would anticipate that a recommendation is going to come back to you on September 11th. We continue to work through really synthesizing the information that was provided by the folks that participated. And by the way, thanks to all the people that participated in the public and certainly the council members that were able to attend. But we had a few folks that attended the public meet and greet. And we invited lots of organizations from the Pickleball Association to the Friends of the Library. And a lot of them were able to at least show up in some way. And so we really appreciate their input. And I think they appreciate the opportunity to participate in the process. And again, I think probably on September 11th, if everything goes as planned, there'll be a recommendation that comes before the City Council. We have some Labor Day closures. Certainly non-emergency offices will be closed on Labor Day, which is Monday. We'll be back and open for business on Tuesday, the 5th. So the 4th will be closed, and the 5th, but emergency offices will continue, and I just continue to rattle them off if that's okay.
Go for it.
And then the next one, I'm going to take a quick breath and ask Pete to come up and talk about some of we have a lot of construction going on. And so last time Pete gave a really nice summary of some of those activities. So he's here again to provide that. And first of all, thanks folks for patience and cooperation on detours and road closures and all of those kind of things. So Pete, I'll be quiet and leave it to you.
It is a hectic time, and we're glad school's back open and everybody's happy on 361. We do have the road open, as we mentioned, and we still got some activities to work on out there, so you'll see some activity happening related to striping, some dirt work and some seeding that'll have to happen yet. We've done quite a bit of the dirt removal to the North Industrial Park. You'll see some activity on the end of Klein Street related to this project here. Over the next week or so, it should really shape up fine, but it's open now and we can get everybody in and out of school, which was our main goal before school started. So, also on St. Julian, Old Minnesota, as you know, the road is closed. Working through a few bugs there, but we have a lot of activity going on there as well, mostly with removal. So curb and gutter and asphalt is being stripped away. They're prepping the site and they're trying to finish up with a couple of utility relocates to make things happen. The gist of the main activity will happen next week when we start the deep sewer work and some of the water main work within the right-of-way. And so you'll see a lot of activity, big hose and trucks and loaders out there. So Highway 169 South, the utilities are completed. The roadway surface is being prepped. The base is installed. The next few weeks or so, you'll see some concrete work going on there along with sidewalk and curb and gutter in that area there to make things happen. So that's coming along nicely. That project is also still on schedule, so things are looking good. They have been working some late Fridays and some Saturdays in order to make that deadline happen, but anything we can do to get the highway back open here in October would be much appreciated. We're still working on Pine Street as well. We've continued to work with property owners, fielding questions, working with our engineering team here of Bolton and Mink, and trying to get a design ready to go for winter bidding. And then seal coating has been completed and we have picked up stone. This year we had not as much rock picked up because of the hot weather and the application. We had a lot of stone that did go into the roadway, and so we're really happy with how that came out. Should really beef up the processes where we were seal coating.
Glad that hot weather was good for something.
It was. Yeah. But it was dusty, but it was really good for the roadway. So.
Yeah.
And really thanks again for everyone's patience and cooperation as we do these projects. It
makes a difference.
Yeah, it does make a difference and saves everyone money when we can do those types of projects. So thanks for everyone. Thanks, Pete.
Yep.
The last one that I'd just like to mention, and Brad is the one that emailed today. Otherwise, I mean, I knew it was coming up and we have a tentative agenda, but we hadn't talked about it at a meeting like this, but want to make sure that folks have, those that can attend, we have a joint meeting with the school board on the 6th, so next Wednesday. And so that agenda will be coming out in the next day or so. The Soup and I talked about it on Thursday, and so be ready for that. Again, our goal has been to try and do this a couple times a year, so we're continuing to try and make that happen. Madam Mayor, members, that's the last item that I have for reports for tonight. Oh,
6:30 or 4:30 that meeting?
Gerald will send it out. I cannot remember. I think that might be right, but
It is not 4:30.
I thought it was 5.
That was
5:30?
I think it's
Okay.
5:30. I have
Yeah,
5:30.
okay.
Yeah, it'll be on the top of the agenda. Sorry about that.
That's fine. And then council meeting will be Tuesday next week, correct?
That's correct. So we do not meet on Labor Day. We'll meet on the Tuesday. We'll have a workshop. Yeah. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
All right. If there is nothing further, how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Madam Mayor, I have a sneaking suspicion that if you had called me earlier, we could have beat Brad's record.
Oh!
I wasn't saying I was watching the clock, but maybe. There was a point where I'm sitting there, it's like, it's 7:10, let's see whether.
Yeah, I thought you were winding up for a few questions, maybe.